Hi everybody and welcome to Sophie and Kit's Fantasy Picks. This week is the World Golf Championships over in America, and we can get back to picking our European Tour players, but also there's a few PGA ones there that we need to take care of. Firstly, welcome Kit. It's nice to see you again.
Hello.
Together, the band is back together.
I know, it's not like a long couple of weeks.
Yeah, I know. European Tour, we haven't had any, but we've had the PGA Tour, so we can study some form. Now, World Golf Championships are mega points-wise, aren't they? I've had a few people say to me, oh, I've had a really tough start to fantasy golf, or is it worth me even starting it? This is the week, isn't it, that you can really gain on everybody else.
Oh yeah, if you haven't started yet, definitely start, because A, it's great fun anyway, and B, you have plenty of time left to catch up, and there are enough points on the board. As you mentioned there, Sophie, the WGC is worth massive Race to Dubai points. We've got all the majors this year to come as well, a couple of Rolex Series events. The points in the fantasy game go off the points in the Race to Dubai, so the bigger the event, the more points on offer, the bigger a week it is, the more points you can make. Like, you could easily go from virtually bottom of your private league with a good week this week to right up at the top, and certainly in the overall leaderboard you can make massive strides. So yeah, get involved and pay particular attention to these big events.
Yeah, and the reason for this is there's 4 World Golf Championship events a year, and it's 78 of the best players in the world. This week we've got 48 of the top 50. There's no cut, so the players are thinking free money, and I'm thinking points, because if you miss the cut on the fantasy, you get 0 points. So there is no miscut this week, which is an absolute bonus. So it's at Concession. So it's normally in Mexico, but due to COVID reasons, they've moved it to Concession, which is a private club in Florida. Do you know anything more about this club, Kit?
A little bit. I've done a bit of digging. It's a Jack Nicklaus and Tony Jacklin design, and named for the famous Concession, the 1969 Ryder Cup at Royal Birkdale. Jack Nicklaus conceded a 2-foot putt to Tony Jacklin for the first ever tie in the Ryder Cup. So it's gone down in history as one of the greatest examples of sportsmanship, not only in golf, but in sport in general. And the two got together to design this course in Florida as kind of an homage to that moment and what it stood for. It opened in 2006 to par 72, going to be just under 7,500 yards. So a decent length, but at a par 72, nothing mental. The par 5s, by all accounts, are actually quite tough, which is interesting at a tour event. You know, we haven't had any pros play it yet, so we'll see how much that bears out. When you hear sort of normal golfers, if you say the set of par 5s are tough, that doesn't always equate to the pros not making eagles and birdies, but certainly it seems like it will stand up to the test. And in general, I don't think scoring is going to be incredibly low. The greens are quite small. There's a lot of contouring on them as well, various different plateaus. So you want to be accurate. And if you're not, you're going to need a great touch, great imagination around the greens to use those slopes to get your ball close. And of course, they don't have the experience of seeing the best ways to get it close to certain flag sticks prior to getting there this week, essentially. The only kind of course tournament form we've got to go on is the 2015 NCAA College Championships that were held there. Bryson DeChambeau won that. Thomas Dietrich had a good showing as well. Paul Dunn was actually finished 5th in that. Obviously not playing this week, but nice for Dunners to get a mention. So there's not a huge amount to go on, but I think it's going to be a really interesting test and difficult, which I think when you've got a WGC field of, as you say, the top 48 of the top 50 in the world, all the best players are there. You want a proper test for them.
You sure do. I'm excited to see a new course. Obviously, the first few weeks on the European Tour, we knew those golf courses reasonably well. We were getting to know them. Same with Riviera on the PGA Tour. This is a brand new course. Maybe some of the players might have played it in private. When I was doing my research, Strategy Key, which is normally for a Jack Nicklaus course, and he was saying that there's a few. He's copied a few golf courses, that his favourite golf courses, like Augusta, Royal Melbourne, Pebble Beach. I'm thinking this is going to be an unbelievable golf course to play and watch. I think with a Jack Nicklaus course, if you look at, I can't study who's played well on it before because there isn't any form, but I'm looking at courses like Memorial, the type of course like that where players have played well. That's where I'm going to do my study on who to pick this week. And when I've looked at World Golf Championships, in the last 10 World Golf Championships, they've been dominated by the Americans, absolutely dominated. Rory's the only one that's jumped in there. So that's something for everyone to think about. Now, picks, it's really easy just to go straight down the world ranking, isn't it? That's something which we can easily do. We spoke about at the beginning, there's a few surprises in there, which you wouldn't have thought would be picks. I'll maybe let you go into that, but not available. DJ, Brooks Koepka, Paul Casey. I'm not sure why he's not
playing this week. Only 3 players eligible we've decided not to play. That's Casey, Brandon Stone, and Tiger Woods, who's of course injured. So interesting that Casey's taken the week off. Obviously a very busy period coming up. We've got the Players, the Florida Swing in general, then we're into the Masters. So maybe just feels he needs a little bit of a rest. Obviously played a lot over in the Middle East at the start of the year.
Who have you seen as the kind of surprise players that we can pick though?
Well, I mean, I'm just looking down my list. So you've got Abraham Answer. I'll go in alphabetical order just and pick out a few. Abraham Answer, Patrick Cantlay is available. We know Fenow is from being in Saudi Arabia. Lanto Griffin, if you want something a little bit out of the box, the American who's been very good the last couple of years. Billy Horschel's available. Sung Jae Im, Colin Morikawa. We know about Patrick Reed, who's appeared as well. And also Justin Thomas is available. So some Americans there that previously haven't had European Tour memberships, but obviously have taken up Race to Dubai membership this year. So we'll be seeing them in a few events aside from the WGCs and majors, hopefully as well. And definitely guys there that put the cat amongst the pigeons and might knock out a few of your traditional European Tour players that you might otherwise be picking.
Absolutely. I think this is the week not to be too loyal to your European stalwarts. That's what I'm going with anyway. We did speak last week or the week before about players that we'd like to see do better. It was nice to see Matt Fitzpatrick playing well at Riviera. And I think this is a golf course that could suit him. Pick-wise, we normally go with our kind of stable top 4. Have you got that this week?
I've got a pretty stable top 4. And I think it's probably going to be largely similar to yours. Rory McIlroy. We're in a funny place with Rory at the moment, as we always seem to be. He missed the cut. Maybe that's a blessing in disguise. He can get across to the other side of the US a bit earlier, perhaps acclimatise a bit quicker, get more of a look at the course. But he's Rory McIlroy. It's really hard to leave him out of any fantasy team. Tony Finau, you've got to ride the wave of those 3 runners-up finishes. Do I think he's going to win? No. Do I think he's going to finish top 5? Probably. So that's points. Patrick Cantlay, I like his form as well. The putter's just been a little bit cold over the last couple of weekends, but aside from that, he's playing really nice golf. And someone else, John Rahm, of course, has got to be in most people's teams, I would think. And maybe a Victor Hovland. Really consistent form now, adding those big weeks that he had early in his professional career, now just bringing that pretty much week in, week out with the consistency. So, I mean, those are the guys that it's going to be really hard to look past for me. How about you?
I'd agree. John Rahm for me won Memorial last year, Jack Nicklaus, his tournament, his golf course, 2nd in the world, had a decent showing at Riviera, so he's on form. Cantlay, another winner of Memorial. Yeah, had a disappointing 72, but he's been there or thereabouts for the past few weeks. Really good strategy as well, which this golf course is about. Rory, I haven't even got why Rory. He's just, why not? Can't leave him out, like you said. Fenow, as a professional golfer, Fenow's consistency is incredible. I am shocked by his consistency as much as I'm shocked that he doesn't win. We're always taught, you get in the mix, it'll come. You'll stumble over the line one day, all that type of thing, or someone will give it to you, or you'll shoot that 66 and win. And I just can't believe he is not. But saying that, I think DJ will win. and he's not in the pick. So it could be a little bit like Saudi Arabia, where we pick up the points with him. So they're my solid 4. And then I've got 3 going into 2. So I've got Victor Hovland coming off a good week at Riv, played well at Saudi, top 10 world ranking. I've got Colin Morikawa, who has been, I suppose average for him at the moment, but a fantastic iron player. And then Bryson, only because his record is very good at Jack Nicklaus courses and he has got form. And I just think a player like, the only thing is with him, normally a really good player, you can't see him having too many bad weeks in a row, but then the consistency with his driving and how far he's hitting it. I think out of all the top players in the world, because of his distance, he has that lack of consistency. But then there's somebody in there that, Tyrrell Hatton has been a really good player for us the first few weeks. And he's world number 5. I just don't know how I can leave him out. So I'm thinking I'm going Tyrrell and Victor. They're my 2 that I'm going to put in.
Looking at the form and the kind of statistics, that is the sensible 6. And I think, looking back, I think I did Tyrrell a bit of a disservice by not mentioning him in my little rundown of, your main guys. I'm really intrigued by players like Patrick Reed, who came over to Saudi, didn't have a great week, but won obviously the week prior to that in the States. And if we are going to need a little bit of short game nous and imagination, and we're going to think people are going to miss greens because they're pretty small and there are those undulations, he's a player that has probably got one of the best 5 short games in the world at the moment. Is he going to come to the fore? Even looking at guys like Fitzpatrick, who we mentioned, you feel like if the course sets up and plays as we're expecting it to, that's going to suit him. A Shane Lowry, maybe, an absolutely delicious short game. Like, if people are missing greens, he's going to get up and down a lot more often than most others. So if you were looking for kind of an outsider away from those big 6, if people wanted to differentiate their teams a little bit from what most people are going to go for, are there any names that jump out at you that might not be amongst the most picked?
I just feel that I can't get away from the top players at World Golf Championships. Somebody like Bob Mack, who's got in there. He's now in the top 50 in the world. He's going to be playing in these events. The Matt Wallaces. These weeks are huge for them. Forget the crowds. And I wonder if you're almost putting too much pressure on them to step up.
Yeah.
I think the big decision this week is the captain, rather than are you going to throw in a bit of a wild card. That's my theory. Do you have anybody that you would potentially sneak in?
If I was going to sneak someone in, I think it would be someone with a dynamite short game and putter. I'd be going for someone that's going to be able to separate themselves a little bit around the greens. So for that reason, it is your Lowrys, your Fitzpatricks that are kind of coming to mind. If you wanted to go on the fact that Thomas Dietrich, I think, was runner-up to Bryson DeChambeau in those NCAA championships, Thomas Dietrich might be a decent bet as someone that's played the course before and has good memories of it. But again, you take these more standard European tour players, if you like, or the guys who are just breaking through on the upwards curve of their career, like a Dietrich, and put them in this WGC environment. How much is that going to do mentally? We know that these guys have got the game, and if they play their best, they've shown on the European Tour week in, week out, they can shoot scores that would rival the best players in the world. The question is, on the first few times they show up at WGCs and majors, can they bring that game to that moment? Now, I'm not saying they can't, and obviously some will, but it's taking the chance. We've listed 6 or 8 absolutely world-class players who are going to be right there or thereabouts, you would think. It's going to be tough to whittle that down to 6 anyway. Then if you think, well, I'm going to whittle it down to 5 or 4 to perhaps get a more of an outsider in, it's tricky. I think I'm almost tempted to go for a bit of a punt because there's no cut. I think the fact it's a shorter field, 72 players with no cut, you're guaranteed they're going to make some sort of points. There are maybe 5 to 10 players in the field who are on pretty poor form, or they're the guys that have got in from Sunshine Tour, Japan Tour, Australasia Tour, so wouldn't be the world-class players. So you think maybe you then whittle it down to top 60. One of these guys has a decent week, suddenly they do get themselves into the top 10. There's a risk in regards of you've not got one of the top players, but at least you know that punt that you take is going to get some points.
Yeah, but I think if I was punting, I would go Fleetwood, Rose, that type of
There's levels of punt.
Yeah, like Keimer, you know, like Keimer's somebody that he's going to have a good year. Keimer, you can see by his interview. So it's amazing that I'm talking about punting on these guys, but basically anybody outside the top 10 in the world for your team this week is a punt, in my opinion. So team captain, I said, would be the important one. I'm going to captain Jon Rahm. What about you? I
think Jon Rahm's definitely in my consideration, but just as a point of difference, and I'm not definitely committing to it at this stage, but I like Tony Finau. You look at his form, it's absurdly good. To go back to what you said, I find it unfathomable that someone that is that good, that consistently, hasn't somehow backed into a victory or had one or two handed to, like, it's almost inexplicable. And I can't think of any other golfer in the last, certainly 20 years, maybe going back even further, that has been so good so consistently and won so little. And is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Well, obviously it's generally a bad thing, but the interview he gave,
bank manager.
Well, not for his bank, exactly. I think he was 18.2 million he'd earned since the win in Puerto Rico prior to last night. That's probably tipped him over 19 mil, I would imagine. There's a reason he had a smile on his face in the interviews. On the one hand, you could say, why isn't he more disappointed? But I think he was disappointed. But the fact he's smiling just shows that he appreciates it. And going into this week, I'd rather see a smiling Tony Finau having finished second 3 weeks on the trot and taking the positives than one who's beating himself up in terms of his prospects moving forward in this week specifically. So, you know what? Like the bank manager, I'm going to ride Tony Finau.
Yeah, I think that's a very safe pair of hands there. So just to kind of run over everything about fantasy golf, it's on the European Tour website. If anybody that wants to enter, go on there, click on the Race to Dubai and sign up. It's 6 players. That is it. You can change those 6 players every single week, but your captain gets double, which is why we're talking about the importance of a captain. There's league tables. So you've got the big league, the global league, when there's over 40,000 of us playing, but we also got private leagues. So me and Kit have got a private league. We'll put the links below. And you can make your own leagues. It's simple, it's easy, it's not as taxing as other sports that do it, but it's just really good fun. It gives you something to watch, especially when you're going down the list to see if your players have made the cut and things like that. So we've done all right so far, Kit. I feel like we taught slightly better game than most, but this is what these videos are here for you. It's here for us to do the research. So all you have to do is just watch us, and hopefully we'll be able to advise you better on your picks.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we do a lot of research, so let's hope it does work for this week. So thanks very much, Kit. We'll be watching in Florida, won't we? It starts on Thursday, finishes on Sunday. It's a regular 72 hole event, and it counts for the Race to Dubai for the players who are actually tour players and us pretend tour players stroke managers. So make sure you get watching it, and Sunday we will see if all this talk and all this research has worked here.
Fingers crossed.
Right, everybody, thank you so much for watching. This is our first YouTube video, so you have to do the click the like button, the subscribe button, ring the bell, because we would like a few followers. That would be amazing. Me and Kit will talk a load of rubbish about golf all the time for you. So we'll be here hopefully every week the European Tour is playing. and we will do that research for you. So thank you very much for watching. And if the picks aren't right, don't blame me, blame him.